going on, everybody? Welcome back to Crushing It. We're gonna start doing a nice proper Wednesday show. This is the Wednesday show. I know it's a little late in the day. It is 6:30 where I currently am, but I am still so excited to get into this and to start talking about the Broncos. And I'm gonna tell you why the Denver Broncos are gonna be just fine. Don't mind the OBS on the other screen there. That is there for a reason, and it's whatever. It's because I'm going to start showing you guys some stuff that's going to happen. As you can see on this graphic, there is the Broncos' next 5 games. And I'm going to tell you why I think these are all very winnable, and then we'll get into these 2 bottom games as well, because I'm really calling the second half here. I am calling the second half. I actually think I have the schedule picture. It's my background, so I have to have it somewhere. It's just, where is it? Okay, those were old thumbnail shots. I don't have it in my screenshots, do I? I didn't think so. Interesting. Oh, maybe I did have it screenshotted. Okay, hang on. There is, I guess I already had it pulled out. I am a dingus. Hang on, we are a little disorganized. Here we are. This is the picture we need right here. I just need it to come into full quality. Thank you. We're gonna save that. And it does save as a JPEG, thankfully. So let's go into Broncos schedule. Okay, perfect. Now we can open this up. Yeah, sorry, this has been kind of a mishmash here. But here we are, the Broncos schedule. So we'll give, so let me zoom in a bit, get everything in view. So let's give a quick recap over how their season has gone. If I can find my edit tool, gonna need my pencil. Okay, control zoom does not work the way I want it to. Whatever. Okie dokie. Pen tool. Paint tool, maybe? Nope, just the pen tool. Okay. So, let's knock out the games we know they lost first. Obviously, they've lost 5. So, L here. L here. Let's see. L here. L here. L here. Unfortunately. A little asterisks in that, because it shouldn't have been a loss, but it was. Would have been their first win in Arrowhead since 2015. So now we pull out the green marker. What games have they won? You got the Bucks, you got the Jets, you got the Raiders, you got the Saints, and you got the Panthers. So the quality of the wins haven't been great, I will admit. But it could be worse. It could be much worse. Honestly, some of the games I could have seen going as losses would have been maybe this Raiders game, because the Raiders always play us super good for some reason. Early on, I thought this Saints game could have been a loss. I definitely thought this Jets game would have been a loss, and I thought this Bucks game would have been a loss. I thought the Bucks would have been better than they actually have been this year, so that's been a little surprising. So now we look at their final slate of 7 games. All of these, I think, are very winnable, because there is not really a single winning team on here other than the Chiefs and the Chargers. So, really, how do I think this season is going to boil down, and why? I am going to pull up an ESPN frame here, just for positional rankings alone. So let's go ahead, ESPN. Yeah, Google already knows what I'm searching for here. Google already knows. I got a pander for the live thing, but hopefully I can actually edit this down pretty quick and get this properly uploaded. So we are looking at defense first by total yards per game. So let's just look to this Atlanta game. So Denver's still sitting top 5 in total yards per game, just under 300. They're sitting really good right now in that category. Atlanta is still kind of down here in the bottom 10, giving up 352.8. And the Broncos offense hasn't been perfect, but I think it's looked better in the last couple of weeks. And they're kind of right where Atlanta is offensively in yards per game that the Falcons are. So we look at this. The Falcons don't have that great of a defense. Cool. All right. Bottom 10. Let's go look at their passing yards right here. See if I can find them real quick. Atlanta, where are you? So again, bottom 10 pass defense. It's crazy that they're doing the things they're doing, and I'll get into that in a second. Rushing defense, Atlanta is a bottom half team. So, and just with Denver right here, I mean, they are top 10 in every category, pretty much, besides maybe points per game after getting a big one dropped. No, they're still top 10 points per game. I am just kind of making quick little reads here. So how are the Falcons as good as they are? Well, they are top 5. I want to say they're fifth. Yeah, they are 5th in total yards per game, which you look at the way Kirk Cousins has been playing this year, and there is no doubt why. Passing yards per game, once again, 5th. Rushing yards, they're in the top half of the league. If I had to guess, probably like 14th. I mean, I can count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so the Falcons are 12th in rushing offense, 5th in total in passing offense. Points per game, they're a little lower on the list, but they are still in that top echelon of the league at 23.8, at least in the top half. Not by much, but they are. They're definitely better than the Broncos in points per game. So, what do I think gives, and why am I going to... Hang on, so let's pull out of here real quick, and we're going to do a lot of bouncing back and forth. I'm going to grab a different green, or actually, let's use, I guess, for new wins, for wins I'm calling, let's go with blue. Let's go with blue. The Falcons are a win. I'm going to say it right now. It's going to be a weird game. It is going to be a weird game. But I definitely think you can get a win out of the Falcons. You're going to be playing at home after a little bit of a road trip. You've played 3 your last 4 on the road. So you're coming home. You're feeling good. You almost beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. You feel you should have won that game. You're hungry. You're ready to wipe the Falcons off the map. And that's kind of where I'm at there. I think the Falcons haven't been the most consistent at times, and I really don't know that they've played up to competition when they've played good teams. I mean, we go look at the Falcons' schedule real quick. If I can spell schedule. Holy shit. So yeah, they are first in the NFC South. Denver has already taken out the other 3 NFC South teams, which I now realize, I mean, Denver could go for the sweep here, but I mean, you got 2 3-7 teams, a 4-6 team, and then the one team that is actually winning games in their division. So let's go look at who they beat, who they've lost to. Lost to Pittsburgh, which nobody really saw Pittsburgh coming out of the gate like they were, but Pittsburgh is an incredible defense. Barely squeak one out against the Eagles that were struggling to get off of the ground. Couldn't bring it up against the Chiefs, which honestly no one has been able to, so that's whatever. Barely beat the Saints, barely beat the Bucks, handily beat the Panthers, got demolished by a faltering Seattle team, barely beat the Bucks, barely beat the Cowboys, lost to the Saints. The Falcons are kind of a mid-team right now, being carried by, I'd say, an easy division that they're barely squeaking by in games unless they're playing the Panthers. They've lost to teams like Dallas as recently as last week, November 3rd on that Sunday. They have, I mean, like, it has not been great for them. They got decimated by Seattle, and they've beat the Bucks by a combined 11 points in both games. And that's an injured team. That is an injured team with no receivers. I think Bo Nix and the Broncos have a really good chance here to, I'm not going to say mop the floor with the Falcons, but I think they can certainly handle them. I think they can certainly handle the Falcons. So let's look at their next game. You got the Oakland... Okay, I'm not going to do my Tom Grossi impression. Oh my god, I almost said Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders is your road game here, and man, the Raiders are having a bad year, which no one thought they would be good. Let's be honest here. Let's see. Yeah. So you have the 4th place Raiders after the Falcons game. And, buddy, it has not been good for them. You're 4th in the AFC West. And there's a myriad of reasons everyone can point to. Your quarterback situation has been atrocious. Let's get that out of the way. Quarterback situation's been atrocious. You no longer have Devontae Adams. And if we come look in these rankings, the Raiders are a bad offense in points per game. Let's go back to total yards per game here. They have been a bad offense. Bottom 4 in yards per game. A little higher, but you're still bottom half of the league in passing yards per game, barely squeaking 200 out. Rushing wise, they're the worst. They are the worst running team in football, and points per game isn't going to be much kinder. 18.7. You're losing by a full point to the Broncos there. In that way, you look at the defense here for the Raiders. They're kind of middle of the pack. They're actually in the higher half of middle of the pack. Only giving up 325 a game. Not bad, but that is a far cry from what Denver has given up, like we mentioned earlier, 295-7. You go to passing yards per game. Raiders are actually a good unit, and really probably the only reason they've won 2 games up to this point. You look at the rushing defense. Not great. Granted, Denver doesn't have the best of running games, and we can go look at that real quick. Obviously, passing yards per game, Denver has been a pretty unproductive offense. Bottom 6. Go look at rushing yards per game, and Denver hasn't actually been that bad running the ball. They are, I want to say here, lower half, like probably 18th. If we go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay. So 20th in rushing yards per game, which is kind of a huge slip from where they've been, but the running game hasn't found any traction yet. And then points per game, like we mentioned. I mean, Denver is a full point better on average than the Raiders. And I certainly think this is a much different Raiders team than the Broncos played. I mean, your number 1 guy is Jacoby Myers, and he's not nearly... I don't want to be rude to the guy. Jacoby Myers is a really good receiver. He's not Devontae Adams. He is not Devontae Adams. And that's kind of where I am with that. Not to mention, I mean, you're flip-flopping between Gardner Minshew and AOC, and I don't think you have a recipe for success. I mean, after that first drive in week 5 that Denver took against the Raiders, in week 5, it was all downhill for the Raiders. And I think we could see a repeat of that, just maybe without the sluggish start from the Broncos. So I'm going to give them a sweep there. We'll look at that. We're 7-5. Suddenly we're feeling good again. And as of right now, I do believe Denver is sitting 7th seed in the AFC. Open another tab here. You can never have too many tabs. But you go look at the NFL playoff picture. Official website. I want to say Denver is still sitting 7th seed even after 2 conference losses. So, I mean, we'll fucking wait for this to load. Holy shit. Come on. Give it to me. Give it to me. Give me the graphic. Give me the graphic. Give me the graphic. Okay, so we look at the playoff picture here. It's Chiefs in the 1 seed. Pretty easy. You've got Bills at 8-2 right behind them. Steelers at 7-2 right behind them in the 3, which the Steelers, again, have been a huge surprise this year. You've got the Texans in the 4 seed at 6-4, and then you've got the 5-seeded Ravens, 6-seeded Chargers, 7-seeded Broncos, and they are a game above everybody else fighting for this 5 spot, or for the 7 spot, sorry. So Colts are a game down, Bengals are a game down. These are 2 games the Broncos play. If we pull this aside, these are 2 games that Denver can assert themselves as that 7 spot favorite right there. And then let's just kind of pull that apart. Dolphins are falling off. Jets have been bad. Pats are really nowhere near any sort of relevance. And I mean, you look at these playoff odds. I mean, the Jets barely have anything going for them. Dolphins are worse. Bengals and Colts still have fighting chances, but they are really kind of the last walls for, barring a huge collapse, Denver might as well kind of have this 7th seed good. They're a coins flip odd into the playoffs right now, and they can boost that to 61% with a win on Sunday. So a win here is absolutely massive. So Colts and the Jets are going to play. So really, like, if you are a Broncos fan, you're rooting for the Jets here, just to cannibalize the hell out of the Colts. Bengals play the Chargers. You're kind of rooting for the Bengals here because, I mean, obviously Chargers are about a game above us, so this would give us a half game separation here. Dolphins, I mean, you're rooting for them against the Raiders, but I mean, that's just because the Raiders are bad. And then really no other real rooting guide here just because of how fucked everybody else is. No one's like mathematically eliminated yet, but the Jaguars are not making it to the playoffs. The Raiders are not making it to the playoffs. The Titans are not making it to the playoffs. Browns aren't making it. You get the idea. You get the idea. No one else in the conference besides seeds 7, 8, and 9 are really vying for a playoff spot right now. So, I mean, suddenly you're sitting 7 and 5. I don't think the Colts are. I mean, maybe the Colts beat the Jets. I don't know if they win their next two. That would vault them back into playoff position, though, especially if Denver does kind of falter here down the stretch. Bengals are kind of in the same boat here. 4 and 6. You're a game back of a playoff spot right now, and we're hitting the back stretch with 7 games to go. So there is that. This playoff race will be interesting, but here we go again. I think Denver pulls it out over Cleveland. Even kind of riding this Jameis Winston mania thing here. I definitely think Denver can beat Cleveland. Their offense is 31st in the league. Absolutely abysmal. They're still not great even with the Jameis boost. They're bottom 5 in pass yards per game. Say it with me, man. They are bottom 5 in rush yards per game. They've got no production even after getting Nick Chubb back. And then they have boosted themselves out of the very bottom of the points per game mark. They're bottom 4 right there. So we go look at defenses. And even then, Cleveland's defense hasn't really lived up to the standards it sets for itself. They're sitting kind of around the middle mark in total defensive yards per game. We go look at pass yards per game. They are in the upper half of the league, only allowing 205.7. Rushing yards, again, kind of upper half, but they're hovering around that midpoint, 122.6. So they're kind of really just like an average defense. You go look at their points per game too, and they are in the bottom half of the league. I think Denver's offense has been getting on a little bit of a roll here, especially against the Chiefs. I don't know. They're coming off of 2 rough games, but I've liked what I've seen from Bo Nix in both games in very limited samples. I think he looked much better against Kansas City, and that's no small feat because again, I mean, he got the Broncos in winning position. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people forget. Bo Nix almost outdueled Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes was not playing good that game until he got bailed out by an illegal contact call that nobody bothered to show the replay for because it was fucking bogus. That was not a good call. And so, I still think this is I think this is a very confident team, and I think the Falcons, and then once again the Raiders here. This is a more experienced Bo Nix. This is a guy with 10 games under his belt, 11 games under his belt going into each of these games. So I think you give him just kind of a middling Browns defense, and you've got a recipe for a win. And I still think Denver's rush game will be okay enough, especially with the absolute life they've injected into it with Audric Estime. Estime adds another dimension. He just needs to hang on to the ball, which he has lately. So not knock on wood there. So you go into a week 14 bye on a 3-game win streak. You're feeling good. You got another home date or another home game. You're going to have the Colts. I'm going to chalk that as a win. Just hang on. I know this sounds like overly optimistic here. This sounds really optimistic. I've got us sitting after, all of these games. This is, no, not 8. This is a 9-5 Broncos team. And maybe it doesn't go this way. I mean, like, let's look at some of the variables here. I mean, maybe Cleveland just kind of wipes the floor here with Denver. Maybe Myles Garrett causes some bullshit. Maybe Denzel Ward has a really good game. Denver can't get anything going offensively. Maybe the Raiders kind of fold them a little bit, so maybe you've got that. You're going to 6-6, 7-6. You're still 8-6 right here. Really, I think worst case scenario, I think the Chargers could be one loss right here for sure. And really, like, Denver can afford two losses right here. It just can't really be like back to back conference losses. I think the Chargers can give you a loss right here. Although, I mean, Denver has every opportunity to go in and one up the Chargers after a really rough outing there in this first game up here on October 13th. So let's say they lose to the Chargers. You're 9-6. I think they beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals because as good as Joe Burrow is and as good as that offense has been, the defense for the Bengals has been downright fucking bad. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, they're bottom of the league. Not bottom, but they're in the bottom section of the league in yards per game. So let's just go over these. Bottom part of the league in pass yards per game. And then you look rush yards per game. They actually have an okay rush defense. Nothing too crazy, though. They're still kind of hovering around that just below average point. And then defensive points per game, they are bottom 7. So the Bengals defense, not great. Broncos offense should be getting a little bit more steam here, especially as Bo Nix begins to look a little more comfortable. So let's go look at the Bengals offensive numbers. Yards per game, of course, they're hovering kind of in this upper half, just like right outside top 10, top 12 kind of range. Look at pass yards per game. They are 4th. And this is what I was getting at. Joe Burrow is an absolute madman. Going to rush yards per game. And Burrow's doing it with no run support. 89.7 yards per game for Joe Burrow's Bengals right here. And then their offensive points per game, they're still managing, let's see, they're 6th in offensive yards per game, but Denver has slowed down some really good offenses this year. Granted, they didn't do it to Baltimore, but look at what they did to Tampa. Tampa's been a good offense even without their top guys. Look at what they did to the Saints. I know the Saints were at the same team at the time, but this is a team that put up like 40, 50 points in the first 2 weeks. Like, that was a team capable of doing something. They held the Chiefs to 16. And they almost put up 17 to beat them. So, I mean, really the only outlier here is this Ravens game. That is the only outlier here of Denver's defense completely selling on at least a competent offense. I mean, the Chargers didn't even beat them that bad either. Granted, the defense did fold, but they stiffened up late in the game and gave them a chance. The defense has given Denver a fighting chance every week, except for the Baltimore game, and to an extent, this first Chargers game. So I think Denver comes out with a win here, and then judging how they played Kansas City on the road, listen, I think that's another win. All right, so let's play our worst. Let's play like not the full best case scenario. Best case scenario, they win out. They win out against all of these teams. But let's say they maybe take a loss here. So we're sitting 5-5, 6-5, 7-5, maybe 7-6, 8-6, 9-6, 10-6, 11-6. And it's like I predicted earlier. This is a team that can potentially win 10 games. And maybe you do take another loss to like the Chargers. Even like if I think they can win that game, maybe they do take another loss to the Chargers. That's 10-7 or 11-6, and I certainly think that will be good enough to at the very least hang on to the 7 seed. So now we can go look at the schedules of these other teams that are kind of sitting ahead of them. Let's go look at the Chargers schedule, for example. Let me get out of here. Yeah, let's go look at the Chargers schedule, for example. I forgot to put a space there. They're going to cannibalize. One of these teams are going to cannibalize themselves in this game. The Ravens are going to put the beat down on the Chargers, I think. I don't think the Chargers are going to hang with the Ravens. The Ravens' offense is just ungodly amazing. Maybe they beat the Falcons. I think the Broncos will too. I don't think they're beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Maybe they beat the Bucks. And then, I mean, like I'm kind of going with here, there's good chance they lose this Broncos game. They'll beat the Patriots, and then the Raiders game is kind of a toss-up. So I mean, they might get that 6 seed, and that's fine. We really need them to kind of beat the Bengals here, hold off really any other competition. Really, the only game we need the Chargers to win right now is the Bengals game. Because if the Chargers are destined to go to the playoffs, then fine. They can have the 6 seed or whatever. That's fine. We go look at Cincinnati's schedule. If I can pull out of here. We go pull up Cincinnati's schedule. Again, they've got the Chargers. They're not beating the Steelers. Not with Russell Wilson playing the way he is. Just fucking all of a sudden. Cowboys game. That's going to kind of be whatever. They probably win that. Probably win the Titans game. The Browns game is going to be weird because they always play... The two Ohio teams always play each other really fierce. But, I mean, if we go and look back, because that'll be their second meeting, they barely beat the Browns October 20th. And that was in Cleveland, so, I mean, maybe they do hold the sweep there. Like I said, I think they lose to Denver, and then they're not winning in Pittsburgh. There is a very good chance the Steelers sweep the Bengals, and then maybe they take a loss to the Chargers. That's not going to set them up. And then we go look at Indy's schedule, and they did just announce that Anthony Richardson would be starting the rest of the year. Anthony Richardson has not been a good quarterback. So realistically, I think the Jets beat them. The Lions will smash them. They beat the Pats, lose to Denver, probably beat the Titans, probably beat the Giants. They get feeling a little better. And then I think they beat the Jags. But I mean, you're taking so many losses right here, and you're already 4-6, because that'll be 4-7, 4-8, 5-8, 5-9. Like, yeah, like you're done. I really think the 7 seed is Denver's to hang on to. And so, you know, my prediction stays steadfast. I predicted 10 wins at the start of the year. I'm gonna hold on to that prediction. And you know what? We'll put it nice and up here too, where it's clean. My Denver Broncos prediction for how they'll finish the second half is 10-7. And they will get the 7th seed in the AFC. And they will return to the playoffs for the first time since 2015. They will return to the postseason. It's gonna be glorious, Broncos country. The Denver Broncos are gonna be fine. They are gonna be fine. They've got an easy back half of the schedule. They're not gonna win every game, but I certainly think this is a team that can go out and win some of these tougher games. Because, like I said, you do have Kansas City still on the docket. You do have the Chargers. And then you've got the Raiders at some point, too. Worst case scenario, worst case, this is a 9-8 team. Best case, 11-6. I'm going to call it 10-7. So with that being said, thank you all for watching. I'm going to have this uploaded as an actual upload. I know I said that with the last one, but that just ended up kind of weird. So episode 18, this episode will get cut down and thrown together. I'll have some cool music over it, yada, 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 whatever. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next episode. Keep crushing it, Broncos country. Go subscribe to my gaming channel. I believe that is in the channel description. And with that being said, have a good night, everybody. Much love.